So what I'm trying to do with this immigration paper that my institute's published today is have a comprehensive look at European immigration, say there are ways of controlling European immigration that don't mean you have to do Brexit. And then, by the way, you can concentrate on non-EU immigration, which I think is actually a bigger concern for most people.
OK, and a lot of people already this morning have said it's a little bit rich coming from you, given how you opened the doors back in the 2000s to mass immigration and changed lots of communities.
Right, so first of all, we shouldn't exaggerate this, by the way. In 2004, we could have imposed transitional arrangements on those accession countries, the 8 countries. Actually, the majority of EU migration since 2004 has been from outside of those countries. And we would still have had freedom of movement, if not freedom to work. But the real point is, the situation back then was different. Look, when I left office in 2007, the economy was strong. There was no National Health Service winter crisis. The health service satisfaction levels were at record points. Educational attainment was rising. Crime was falling. Right. Inequality was narrowing. 2017, post-financial crisis, post-austerity. No, you've got to listen to what people are saying and react to it.
But we did have hundreds of thousands of people coming into this country after that decision quite quickly. And lots of communities up and down the country, all up and down the East Coast, for instance, parts of the Midlands and the Black Country, were changed very, very fast. And people didn't understand that. Yep. And the question, I suppose, is, do you accept that among all the reasons for the Brexit vote, that was part of it?
I accept that EU migration, including from those accession countries, was obviously a factor. I do think it probably isn't the biggest concern on immigration. But here's what I'm saying now, because we're not 13 years ago. With 2017, the circumstances are completely different. And we've had the Brexit vote. If, for example, the anxiety is downward pressure on wages as a result of an influx of EU migrants coming and doing work, say, in the construction industry, we have it within our power to deal with that by domestic legislation. In addition, for example, now there is a directive being supported by the French president that would specifically bar the undercutting of wages and local bargaining from EU migration. So if we want to deal with those questions, we can deal with them without the sledgehammer that, as it were, through Brexit, destroys the EU migration that we'll actually need, because my paper shows that we actually need most of these EU migrants. And it doesn't, of course, deal with the other parts of the immigration issue, which I think are the greater concern.
But nonetheless, the British people voted to take back control of their borders. So any change in internal EU migration would have to be quite a dramatic one. Can I ask you whether you see any sign whatever that any of the leaders of the EU or the national leaders are prepared to revisit what is one of the 4 pillars of the EU free movement?
I think there are signs, and I've just given you one, which is specifically dealing with this issue of undercutting of wages. I think you could go back and argue in Europe today for example, an emergency brake that didn't just deal with benefits, but also deal with the influx of people. And I think there are things that we could do domestically, like registering people who come in and those that go out. I think you could probably get a restriction on those that come.
We tried to do this in 2016 under David Cameron and failed.
But this is post the Brexit vote. And the thing that I'm saying is that, you know, at the moment, you either do leave Brexit, as Michael Fallon's just been saying to you, even though, does he really think it's a smart thing to do? No, he doesn't, but he feels he has to. Or we have the status quo. I'm trying to say this. In the end, Brexit is a distraction, not a solution to the problems this country faces. If members of Parliament really believe that, then their obligation is to set out solutions that deal with the actual problems communities and people have, and not do Brexit, which is actually going to distract us from those solutions and going to cause real economic and political damage.